Steve, our boys, the Rolling Stones, have a new album.
They do.
What do you think?
Hackney Diamonds. It took me about 2 listens through to kind of appreciate the album as a whole. I really liked it.
I did too. I did too.
Honestly did. I think it was a little shaky. The first 4 songs I think they have too much reverb on his voice.
Oh, you think?
It sounds like the music is processed, but then his voice sounds like he's in this massive amphitheater, and it just doesn't quite mesh.
It's definitely more heavily produced than the last thing they did was Blue and Lonesome, which was, I feel like 10 years ago, or it was a long time ago. But that was just all blues covers, no original stuff. And that was it felt like garage bandy, kind of like, let's just play some blues. It's a fun album. Not a big standout for me. Before that was The Bigger Bang, which people didn't like, but I think it's pretty good, actually. But I felt like this one felt a little bit more modern than I was expecting from the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, everything had slightly modern sound, and that's why the reverb in the voice sounded funny to me.
Our boy Charlie Watts did drums on 2 of the tracks before he died.
Oh, for real?
Mess It Up and Live by the Sword do have Charlie Watts on it. We saw the Rolling Stones, was it 2019?
That was a great concert.
It was a great concert. Man. I remember at the time we were a little disappointed that we didn't get any of the slower tracks.
Yes. Yeah.
I did feel like this had some pretty good slow tracks on it,
This had some Dreamy Skies, man.
Yeah.
That is a great freaking song. Even the last song, Sweet Sounds of Heaven, there were a couple songs like Dreamy Sky, I think was
Whole Wide World and Depending on You.
Whole Wide World was
also
good.
Really kind of laid back vibe kind of songs that I liked a lot.
To me, that's where it was like, all right.
Okay.
We are now listening to a Rolling Stones album. I think the first 4 songs really struggled, I think.
That's funny because, listening to it on vinyl again, that's side 1. And I kind of preferred side 1, side A.
Really? Oh, man. Side 2 for me.
Okay.
All the way, side 2.
I like Angry, like the lead track. I feel like that's a pretty good one. And Bite My Head Off is the one that gets stuck in my head. I feel like that's kind of a banger. And Paul McCartney plays bass on that one.
Oh, no
So,
way.
yeah, got his hand tucked in his little tiny shirt pocket, just getting ready to play some bass on it. But, I was happy with the album across the board. I thought it was...
Yeah.
It's good. I've been listening to a lot. I made a playlist of Bigger Bang from 2006, this album, and then the few random singles that they put out in the meantime. And it's a good playlist,
Yeah. I thought it was a very eclectic mix of sounds.
It's a whole listening experience, I feel like, of hearing the whole album. It's just, it's good. It's solid. It was honestly a lot better than I was expecting it to be. And I think that listening to Mick's voice, there's not a ton of difference between late 70s Mick Jagger and 2020s Mick Jagger.
It's the reverb. Listen to the old stuff and then listen to this one and you'll be like,
I'm going to do it.
Oh yeah, there's reverb and it's heavy.
That really didn't stand out to me, but I do feel like that makes sense for my impression of it, was that it overall had a more modern sound and a modern tone to it. So maybe I just heard it and kind of let it melt in. But I think, the position of this Endorian Life is 2 thumbs up on Hackney Diamonds. Would you agree?
Oh, heck yeah. Okay. Yeah, 2 thumbs up. I really enjoyed it. Even I was listening to it with Camille in the car. And she liked it.
Yeah.
She was like, it's good.
I listened
Daddy.
with my son too. He was reading a book at the table or something, and I looked over and Bite My Head Off was playing, and he's just bopping around, just absentmindedly, reading his book, just
Camille was doing, doing this at the, in the back, and I was like, all right, she really does.
So there you go.
Welcome to This Endorian Life, a Star Wars podcast from the Radio Meanwhile Network. My name is Steve Rudd.
I'm Nick Gunning, and we've been following the Ewoks throughout their storied history. But this time, our journey through Star Wars vintage brings us to the Clone Wars micro-series, just in time for its 20th anniversary.
Today, we're discussing Volume 1 of the Clone Wars 2D micro-series, which comprises chapters 1 through 20, and these began airing on the Cartoon Network on November 7th, 2003.
20 years ago. We were
middle-aged,
full-grown men.
We were full-grown men. Yeah. So Disney did a weird thing with this, right? Because it's really 3 seasons, but Disney kind of broke it up into 2 volumes, 1 and 2.
Yeah. Well, watching it as we did, which I'm glad you suggested. I'm glad you suggested we do this at all because I know that I've seen isolated segments from this, but to really like sit
Mm-hmm.
down and watch it, I don't think that I had. But I think doing all 20 volumes together makes sense because
It does.
you do have a bit of a conclusion to it. So the series is directed by Gendy Tartakovsky and written primarily by him and Derek Bachman. Season 1 includes chapters 1 through 10. And again, these are 3-minute episodes. So 3-minute
Mm-hmm.
episodes strung together. Originally aired on Cartoon Network from November 7th to November 20th, 2003. Season 2, which is the next 10 episodes, 11 through 20, aired
Mm-hmm.
from March 26th to April 8th, 2004. So spanning across 2 years here, we have these. And I will say, watching it, you do kind of notice, okay, I get how this could be 3-minute segments, but it does
Yes.
work. Released on DVD as Volume 1 on March 22nd, 2005. Released on Disney Plus on April 2nd, 2021.
Which is crazy because that's like 2 years ago, and like I completely forgot that it was there. You know.
I feel like it's kind of forgotten in the same way that the Ewoks and the Droids shows are, because the
Yeah.
later Clone Wars series, like the CGI Clone Wars series, is so beloved that I feel like people sort of forget this little like lead back into Star Wars animation, which
Yeah.
I'm glad for the revisit. Some cast members in common: James Arnold Taylor is Obi-Wan
Hmm.
Kenobi in both. Matt Lucas plays Anakin Skywalker here, and he did that in many video games. We have Grey Griffin as Padme, Tom Kane as Yoda, Corey Burton as Count Dooku, Andre Sogliuzzi is the ARC captain,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
of course, Anthony
Yep.
Daniels as C-3PO. Though he sounded weird to me. Did it sound the C-3PO voice? I was kind of surprised that
Uh,
it was him because it felt a little weird to me.
it did. It maybe yeah maybe a little bit like oddly robotic. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way they
Something about it.
different
Yeah.
recording or
I don't
something.
know.
Yeah. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. Here's a nice little connection for you, Steve. Our featured cast member today is Cree Summers. Cree Summers, of course,
Hmm.
voiced Nisa
Yep.
in the Ewok series, and she makes her return to the Star Wars world nearly 20 years later to voice Jedi Luminara Unduli. So she's here in
Oh no way.
she's here in chapter 14. And
Uh,
it's not a ton of voice work, but it's the first time Cree Summers did a Star Wars character since Nisa.
how does that work? How does that look? Oh yeah, we need some female
Yeah.
voices here. Who do we look?
Yeah.
Who do we look at? Let's look at who's done Star Wars voices in the past, and it's just like, all
They
right,
probably
well, there
didn't
really
even
hasn't been
know.
anything.
Honestly, they probably didn't even know because Nisa was her first thing, and then she became like a voice acting legend. So
That's true. She was pretty prolific at the time.
yeah,
She probably was just like, "Oh, you need a Star Wars voice? Like, I've done
yeah,
Star Wars voices before." And they were like, "Wait, what?
yeah,
You have?"
Ewoks. So it
Like,
seems like she makes it like every decade or so because she came about 10 years later to play Hylo Viz in the Knights of the Old Republic games. Then in
oh, no
another
way.
10 years, so current as of time of recording, she voices the recurring character of Marla Janara in the Young Jedi Adventures.
Oh,
So, but
wow.
yes, we have Cree Summers here, so it's come full
Huh.
circle with our friends the Ewoks.
That's very cool.
Well, I don't know how you're going to do this, but do you want to give us an uber detailed plot for the Clone Wars Volume 1?
Let's do this. Star Wars Clone Wars 2D Micro Series Volume 1, Chapters 1 through 20. Volume 1 of the series focuses on pivotal battles in the Clone Wars that also highlights several recognizable and key characters from Star Wars. Obi-Wan leads a massive assault on the surface of the planet Munilist, home of the Banking Clan, who are allied with the Separatist forces, while Anakin is tasked personally by Supreme Chancellor Palpatine to lead the space battle in orbit. Meanwhile, Count Dooku allies with Asajj Ventress, who enters the battle on Munilist in order to steal Anakin away, which she does successfully when Anakin refuses to obey Obi-Wan's command to stay on task during the battle. Obi-Wan is left alone to deal with Dirge, a bounty hunter placed in command of the Separatist ground forces. Using his cunning ARC troopers, Obi-Wan is successful in defeating Dirge despite the bounty hunter's unique abilities. Anakin, although drawn away from safety, also successfully confronts Asajj Ventress in an epic saber battle, though both of them survive. Anakin returns just after Obi-Wan defeats Dirge for good, or so they believe. Meanwhile, the Clone Wars rage on in other reaches of the galaxy. Mace Windu is confronted with a massive B-2 super battle droid army on the planet of Dantooine. There, he manages to destroy a devastating droid weapon, spelling a solid but costly victory over the Separatist forces there. Kit Fisto takes charge of the joint clone and Mon Calamari forces on the underwater world of Mon Cala in order to defeat the Separatist allied aquatic species Quarren, who have managed to gain a finhold in the depths of the planet's ocean. Luminara Unduli and Barris Alfie are trapped on the planet Ilum by assassin droids with cloaking abilities. Fortunately, Yoda and Padme respond and aid their fellow Jedi in defeating the droids, with the help of C-3PO, of course. Volume 1 truly culminates on the planet Hypori, where several Jedi warriors are pinned down by a massive Separatist droid force. The stranded Jedi are confronted by a droid warrior capable of wielding lightsabers. This droid is revealed to be none other than General Grievous. Grievous successfully kills all the remaining Jedi single-handedly. What will be the Jedi Hunter's next dastardly deed? Roll credits.
It's a good time.
Man, dude, 30 seconds into this,
Yeah.
it is more Star Wars than
I know.
than the entire Ewok and droid.
I know.
Just like, oh man, everything about it.
It has such a unique, I don't know, the look of it, the feel of it, just like the intensity of it.
Yeah.
Some of the versions of the characters you get are just like so cool.
Yeah, it's very unique in the way that they do things.
I thought it was kind of, and this is probably not intentional, but I actually thought it was kind of comparable to the animation in Story of the Faithful Wookiee. Like, even though this is, this is much more polished, and that was the way that all the characters' features are very exaggerated. Like in this, Anakin's got like the big butt chin and like, the little pug nose, and Obi-Wan's all angular, and Dooku's all like tall and skinny. It really it kind of reminded me of what they were doing in Story of the Faithful Wookiee. So I thought there was a nice little connection there.
Yeah.
I wanted to share some listener feedback we got, because I'm curious like what your history with this is. So over on X, Aaron Sinner had this to say: I remember treating each 3-minute episode as must-see TV back when these originally aired. I even taped each one on my VCR to make my own little home copy. Still think it's great, though the over-the-top action works better in 3-minute doses versus watching it all at once. I do agree with that.
That's true.
I
agree with that. Yeah.
We were watching it, and my son leaned over, and he was like, "Why is nobody talking?" And it's true. There are extended sequences.
There are a lot of long,
which I think works better. If you're going to watch a 3-minute scene, just have it be like a pure, true action sequence.
Yeah.
So I definitely remember these airing. It was not must-see TV for me, but I know that I caught them just occasionally when I saw them, and I always thought they were cool. Like I said, I don't think I sat down and really watched it start to finish until I did for this. So what's your history with this?
Mine was, it was just random episodes,
okay,
right? But I do remember catching Grievous and knowing about him prior to...
Well, he's much cooler in this than he is in the movies.
Right, I had completely forgotten about the fact that he wields those lightsabers until he opens himself up and starts doing the flinging, and I was like, wait a minute, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
But like his character, when like people next to me were like, who is this guy? And I'm like, yo, it's General Grievous. How do you not know? And it's just like, not everyone saw this series. No. It was like and
it was very untraditional, like having it not be like, all right, this is going to air at, for a half-hour block at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning or whatever. It's just sort of like boom, 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 boom.
They're like little stingers.
Yeah.
It's like an entire series made up of just stingers.
And, obviously we had the internet in 2003, but it was not the same as it is now. Like, it wasn't really like, nobody's on, social media or something being like, okay, this is when the next episode is, or watch it here. Like, you really had to know when it was on, and you had to like catch it when it was on, and like that was it.
Yeah, you couldn't be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna find it on YouTube. I'll find it on YouTube. YouTube wasn't like mecca of everything yet.
I thought that the voices were interesting, because I feel like James Arnold Taylor's version of Obi-Wan in this is a lot closer to Ewan McGregor. He's a lot tougher in this than he is later in Clone Wars. Because in Clone Wars, he gets very like, well, Anakin, we have to go do this thing, blah, blah, blah. And here he's much more like intense.
Anakin.
Yeah.
He is more of like a leader aspect. And
he's tough.
I thought the weakest voice was
actually in this than he does in other things.
Oh, he's definitely. And it's funny. I think on the contrary to that, I thought Anakin's voice was very weak.
I said the same thing. It's annoying. He's very like, master,
I think they did very good at hitting everything quintessentially Star Wars, also adding their own like little weird, quirky things like the speeder bikes with the jousting
I
things,
know. I did write down
right?
the jousting. I thought the jousting was odd.
I was just like, oh man, I don't remember that, but it just seems so
It
funny,
did.
you
And the
know?
whole water sequence with Kit Fisto, I thought was really fun too.
That was
I
great.
thought
Oh, the lightsaber in the water,
yeah,
that was really cool, the look of it.
yeah,
Did you notice how it almost seemed like both Droid and Clone Trooper were very expendable,
yes.
right? That there was almost like very like
Just
that
yeah, ripping through them. Yeah,
that battle on Dantooine with that thing that like hammered into to the planet's
yeah,
surface and like destroyed everything. There were droids there. Like the droids didn't care that the droids were getting
yeah,
destroyed. It was just like, we'll get them all.
yeah,
Like everyone will die and we'll just win because we're droids. We're not even alive. But I just thought that it was funny that like this, even in watching the movies, if you go back and watch, there is an awful lot of expending of resources foolishly. And I realized that like, well, that will happen when your army is just droids and the other army is just clone
yeah,
troopers. It's like just human
yeah.
droids at that point.
Right.
We're like, we'll just clone some more, right? And so it's just like, I don't know if this is where they start that, right? Like episode 2, everyone gets on their star destroyers,
Yeah.
and then episode 2 ends. But like, this is your first introduction of like, bro, this is a serious war because like people are
Yeah.
dying left and right, and it doesn't seem like
I
anybody
thought all
cares.
of the combat was a lot more intense, and you
Yeah.
saw some like true fighting when Anakin is flying around and he does that thing where, well, first of all, he loses a bunch of guys like right off the bat. That's like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, okay. And then he kind of gets them all together and he's like tells them to shoot at a time that doesn't make sense, but he's like using the force, and then the
Yes.
Star Destroyer kind of moves and the shots go and like take out the whole fleet. Such a cool moment. And like you don't see a
Yep.
lot of that in the movies.
You don't.
So I thought
Yeah.
that was really cool. Love Count Dooku. I mean, I think
I'm glad you remember that scene. That was a great
it was a
scene.
really
That
good
was a great scene in the
it was a
show.
really good scene. I thought Dooku was
Yeah.
very cool in this. I thought his first battle, like his lightsaber battle, was really cool.
Yeah.
How about that gross, like snaky tissue monster that Obi-Wan Kenobi fights?
Urge.
And
Yeah,
that's
that I'm not 100% sure he's done.
what did you think?
I thought he was interesting. When I looked him up, I was like, "Oh, he's a bounty hunter. That's different."
It was just the whole thing was different. The way
Right?
like the arm gets cut off and then it crawls back together and stuff. It was just a different kind of like gross out kind of monster that Star Wars doesn't normally
Yeah.
do. So
Well, they
I thought that
defeat him.
was
Like
great.
Obi-Wan finally defeats him, right?
Yeah.
When he like basically splatters everywhere, but
Yeah.
you do see the tissue starting to
Yep. Yep.
move,
Yep.
and then the
I know.
scene cuts.
Mace Windu sequence also really cool. Like with him sort of
Oh
being
yeah.
kind of prescient, like knowing what's going to happen and everything. I thought was
Mhm.
I really liked how it used the different Jedi in different ways, rather than just making everybody like a slash 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 kind of lightsaber fighter. People did different things
Yeah.
with the Force, and I really appreciated that. How about that Wolf Jedi that we just got like a glimpse of?
Oh yeah.
I looked it up. Volvith Mon. You just
Really?
see him for like a second, but I think we'll see him more in when we get to Volume 2.
This needs to be my Halloween costume one year.
Yeah,
People,
I think
the
so.
one person that gets
I
it,
think so.
and by name, I'll be like,
Yep.
we are
Yep.
friends.
Yep.
We are friends.
I just making Grievous actually a cool character versus like the coughing old man he is in the movies.
It was a very
I
intense
liked
character
that.
in this. Yeah.
Oh, how about the loss of R4 though? Our friend the droid.
Oh,
That was rough when Anakin lands and he's like about to get into it with Ventress and he's like R4 and then the thing blows up. Oh, that's like
yeah.
it's
Oh
like killing
man.
an animal in a movie. I don't want to see it. And it was the same with R4.
Yeah. No.
I just in my heart his program was downloaded and he's gonna get a shiny new body. That's
Oh
what I want.
man.
That's what I want. What's your Oak of Arc moment? What didn't you like?
That's tough.
Okay.
I think it was Dirge.
Oh, okay.
He was interesting and unique, but his character to me stood out in a funny
Yeah.
way, I think.
Okay.
I also didn't like Anakin's voice. That I could not get over.
No, I feel you on that. I liked Dirge. I
But
thought like given the style of the show, like I don't think that kind of character would fit in the movies or even like in the main line like Clone Wars
that's true.
cartoon.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. That like he was like he's good for animation.
Yeah, but
And
I
that's
kind of
really it.
appreciated that they were using the medium to
Yeah.
do unusual things. But I get it. That's weird.
I that like I remember what really bothered me. The entire army of IG assassin droids was just like, whoa, all right.
Yeah,
Like assassin droids are great at killing people, but they are not soldiers
yeah.
per se. And I
I
think
saw them and I was like,
when
hey,
that
it's an assassin droid. And then I was like, oh, that's a lot, but okay.
it's like they're all assassin.
Yeah.
They're assassin droids because
Yeah.
they are good at hiding and killing one person in a crowd of
Yeah.
people, but not like open warfare. So I think that really to me, but it was
Didn't
the
like
whole dirge, and then that
right.
I was just
Some of
like,
the
oh,
villains.
that's
Okay.
yeah,
I think mine
yeah,
probably was the jousting. I just thought it was so weird to like, all right, everybody pack up the jousting equipment just in case. Like, I just thought that's so strange. And the one time where you see Palpatine, when you see like Darth Sidious, and he's a hollow projector. He's on like a little spider like robot that like walks around
yeah.
carrying him. I also thought that was kind of stupid, but you
Well,
know,
that's in episode
I
one.
still didn't like it. I don't know. I,
Yeah. So
I still
it's
didn't
funny
like
you
it.
mentioned that because I did think like, can he like still see? Is he
Right?
just
I
walking
know.
around?
That's what I'm like.
Like why is he
Yeah.
walking around
Right.
in hologram
I
form
know.
in Dooku's
That's what I'm
palace?
saying.
Like where's he going?
Yeah.
Like
I thought it was weird. All right. What's your Ichi Wawa moment?
that scene with Anakin and Asajj
Hmm.
Ventress, where they haven't spoken a word, and it starts to rain,
Yeah.
and it focuses on the saber, and you
Yeah.
see one droplet of rain go,
Sizzle. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and then Ventress is out there, and all you hear is,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
then it's like,
Yeah.
dude, that was so. This era, 1, 2, and 3, had some
Yeah.
insanely good choreography,
Yeah,
man.
all of the best saber battles are in the prequels. I think that's
Yeah,
true.
all of them.
The sizzling in the rain did remind me of the Kylo Ray duel in Force Awakens in the snow, which I really like. I think that's a good
Oh,
scene.
that's true.
So it was kind
Yeah.
of a callback to me. This isn't my Ichiwawa, but it's right up there. Right before they get to that point, and Anakin and the clone army kind of land on this planet, and they're in the jungle,
Hmm.
and all of the guys around him keep getting taken out systematically one by one,
Yeah.
kind of brutal
The
ways.
Predator.
Yes, that was a pretty intense scene, but I
Yeah.
think that I gotta give it to the Kit Fisto sequence. I just thought,
That was really
like
entertaining, man.
we got the Gungan stuff and we got like some chases in water, and there are like limited Star Wars water scenes, but I just felt like the way Kit Fisto just like comes alive in the water and does this whole
Yep.
fight sequence, it just was very unique to me, and I feel like anytime I can see something and be like, oh wow, I don't think I've ever seen that in Star Wars before, and this was kind of that moment for me. It was very very
Yeah.
memorable in that way for all the right ways.
And
So
Kit Fisto is the perfect character
I
for
always
it
like
too,
Kit
right?
Fisto, and like just I like his look, I like whatever,
Hmm.
and this was such a good like showcase for him that I really liked that quite a bit. It's hard to rate. I don't know. I don't have a lot of complaints on it, honestly. I feel like it's
I don't either.
really
Yeah.
strong. So I could be convinced to go the distance and say 5 stars on this because I
Uh,
liked it a lot.
I'm glad you said it first. I'm 5 too.
Okay, there you go. All right,
Like
5 star.
like all the things I think that I didn't like about this, if I have to be honest with myself, didn't really have any bearing on the quality of the story and the animation. It's just like I really just didn't like Anakin's voice,
Yeah,
but it wasn't terrible. It just was like,
yeah. And
oh, it
honestly,
seems like Obi-Wan's trying to be like Obi-Wan, but Anakin wasn't really trying to be Anakin. That's what I think bugged me,
yeah,
you know?
that's true. I do think the Obi-Wan voice was doing its best, and I think the Anakin voice was doing kind of a take on Hayden Christensen's performance rather than trying to
In
just
episode 2.
rather than trying to mimic
Yes.
it. He was sort of doing a spin on it, which I appreciate, but I think because the other was so close, it kind of stood out.
Yeah.
This was a success. Thank you
Yeah.
for coming up with this to do, and it only makes sense that we cover. I mean, this would have been the only Star Wars vintage thing that we're not covering, so we
Yeah.
got to get in here and do it. Perfect timing. Today's the 20th anniversary, November 7th, so that's great. November 7th also election day, everybody. So if you're listening to this on
Oh, that's
November
true.
7th, make sure you vote in local elections as well as the
Yeah.
big ones, because the little ones matter too.
The little ones do matter
I
because
know.
what they affect your
I think
town,
the
right? Your
little,
township and
honestly, the
everything.
little
Yeah.
ones I feel like affect your everyday life
Yeah.
more than the big ones in a lot of ways. But anyway, that's a PSA here from the Centaurian Life. Go
Yes, yeah.
go vote. All right, thanks for tuning in this time. Next time we'll be staying put right here in Star Wars Vintage, covering the remainder of the series with Clone Wars Volume 2.
I'll see you next time, man.
See you later, buddy.
I'm really excited. Yeah.
Me too.
I'll see you.
I'm in it to win it.
This Endorian Life was brought to you by the Radio Meanwhile Network. Other shows on the network include 90s Music Got Me Like, previously on X-Men, and 9021 Here We Go. Share your thoughts on this and upcoming episodes by following us on Facebook or X at Endorian Life. And please rate, subscribe, and share this show wherever you get your podcasts.